Good morning. My name is Jim Daniels with the Isaac Walton League. I'll be your moderator today. First of all, I'd like to thank Chuck Bauer for filling in last time. Really appreciate that. And he's still able to walk after that, too, so that's always a good thing. I'd like to thank the sponsors, which are the League of Women Voters, the Evansville Teachers Association, Valley Watch, Plumbers and Pipe Fitters, Teamsters Local, the Sustainable Communities Coalition, the Isaac Walton League, the Evansville-Vandenberg Public Library, and United Neighborhoods of Evansville. The special thanks go to the library because that's where we're at. Feel free when we get done today is to check out what they have to offer in the library. This is a unique facility, not just these rooms. So it's a great asset to the area. The library does have some modest rules of conduct. The one that we're mostly concerned about is not to pester me too much. And the second one that's most important is there's no weapons allowed in the building. So if you have brought a weapon into the building of any kind, please take it out now. So we'd appreciate that. The refreshments are to my left, to your right. We also have donation jars for those if you'd like to donate to help cover those refreshments. If you'd like to get some notification of these meetings, make sure you sign up in the back with email. We won't be mailing anything or making phone calls or selling your email address. We only use that to notify you of these upcoming events. But be sure that you very carefully print your email address because it has to be exact. That's important. The format for today is that each legislator will get 3 minutes to update you on their activities. Then, once that's done, I'll call on audience members, and we'll go back and forth, left to right, based on whoever holds their hand up. And I'm going to ask you to come up to the microphone that's to my left and state your name, and you'll have 2 minutes to ask a question about the state legislature. I do suggest that you provide written copies of whatever kind of data that you would like the legislators to have. 6 copies of that. And if you're not able to do that right away, at the very least, you should email a follow-up about background information about your issue to the legislators to help them, understand what your issue is. So, but a written copy is very nice. At the very least, an email copy is still gets the information to them. Then I'll ask once you do your 2 minutes, I'll ask each legislator that wants to respond will have an opportunity to do so. What I've done before, which is kind of fun, is I give you guys 2 minutes, and if you're pushing that 2-minute limit, I cut you off. That's kind of fun. But what I've missed is what we used to do was we also had a limit on the legislators' responses. And we haven't really been following up with that. That was even more fun for me to cut the legislators off. So we're going to ask the legislators to keep their responses to your questions and comments to 2 minutes each for each legislator. So, and I'll kind of indicate to each one of the legislators if they're going over. And I'm going to have great fun with that. And we did that before, and I can't imagine the enjoyment. You can't understand the enjoyment that I got out of that. But anyway, we're going to do that. After each topic, before the legislators respond, I will ask the audience if anyone has a different take on the same issue. We'll allow one speaker to have a different take on the same issue, if there is one, and they'll have a minute to do that. And then we'll start the deal. We're going to wrap everything up by 11 o'clock today. I think some of the legislators will be able to hang around a little bit afterwards if you want to do some one-on-one. We'll mention it again, but we do have containers for your trash, and please take your cups, your washable cups, back to the counter when you're done today. If you'd like to contact your legislator, you can do so by telephone. For the House, Democrats is 1-800-382-9842. And for Republicans, it's 1-800-382-9841. For both sides in the Senate, it's 1-800-382-9467. If you want to email a legislator, just put an S for the senator or H for the House, then their district number, and then @in.gov. And that will take you right to them. You can also explore government by www.in.gov. And if you explore government, you'll be able to go to the Indiana General Assembly's website to find out what's happening with the General Assembly. That said, we will start with the reports from Indianapolis. And since last time we started with the House, this time we'll start with the Senate. And we will begin with Senator Thomas.
Thanks, Jim. Just kind of listening to him talk made me think maybe we need legislation about controlling moderators.
It's a good thing I have veto power.
I want to thank everybody for being here today. I appreciate that, and I'm grateful to be here as well. All I can report right now is we're still running through the process now of hearing some of the House measures, and there's some activity as far as trying to blend some of the blend some of these measures together to get them all heard. There's a lot of work on that. We discussed a lot of the matters concerning the budget, redistricting, but also wanted to just point out that with all of the other activity that goes on every day, myself anyway, I've been involved with personal phone calls and emails that I get, and that's important to me to help an individual that has something that they need assistance on. I've had a gentleman, for example, the other day, that a veteran that needed some help on a veteran affair. And I had someone from Mount Vernon that called me dealing with an eminent domain problem that they had going on. And so it gives me a lot of comfort to know that I can assist somebody when they have a personal situation. And I know they like to be able to talk to the legislator themselves, and that's another thing that I take great pride in, and I'm able to personally talk to them. They can either call me at home or they can contact me up at the State House. So this week as well, I had some the gentleman from the IEDC in my office. I invited them in to discuss some things of some ideas I've got about trying to target bringing some production jobs into the state of Indiana. So we had a nice discussion, and I think I'll have them back again this week. I'm going to give them some of my research that I've been doing and see what we can do with that, and maybe this summer get involved in going out and see what we can do about bringing some manufacturing jobs back here to the state of Indiana. So that's pretty much my report. I do want to mention that I have some literature back here on the table, as well as a email list sign up if you want to sign up and get reports from my office on what's going on and what I've been doing up there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job. Under time. Didn't have to cut you off. So, okay. Next is Senator Becker.
Good morning. We appreciate each and every one of you coming out this morning. We've got a decent crowd, not as large a crowd as we normally do, but I think probably the rain and spring times kept people doing other things, but we appreciate you being here. The Senate has been very busy. Just a couple of dates to share with you. April the 21st is the last day for Senate bills in the House and the last day for House bills in the Senate. So the budget bill will probably come out of committee. It has to be out by the 18th, and so then it will come to the floor. There's still a lot of issues. We don't know for sure right now about home health care and what that final appropriation is going to be. One thing I will tell you is that if the state cuts the home health care program to the extent that the governor wants to cut it, it will be, and let me also thank the House for restoring a lot of those cuts, but I know the governor still wanted to cut that. I'm hoping he changes his mind since the revenue picture has started to brighten up a little bit, because otherwise all that will happen is that elderly people and people with disabilities will be forced into nursing homes where it will cost the state $38,000 more a year. So it's not really prudent or cost effective for us to be cutting the home health care program. So hopefully we can keep that going. We've been very busy in the Senate. We've continued to work on lots of bills and lots of legislation. I know I'm working with Wendy McNamara now on an amendment to help the Germania Manicore. How many here ever gone to the Germania Manicore Festival? Oh, well, hey. The Alcoholic Beverage Commission has started to interpret a law that says that you can't have festival days except one a month, and as you may know, Germania Manicore has 3 at one time, and so I have drafted an amendment, and I think there's also an amendment been proposed in the House as well, so that we can change that from one festival day per month or 3 per quarter, which would save not only Germania Manticore, but there's another senator, Clark County, that has a same problem, and Vermilion County has the same issue. And I think it's really just been someone at the ABC has just started to be more enforce what is current law. So we're going to try to deal with that. The amendment's been cleared as far as germaneness to the Senate bill. I will be offering it to House Bill 1325, which is also an alcohol bill. Is my time up?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Well, I appreciate you being here, and appreciate the feedback that you give us as well.
Thank you. Next will be Representative Regan.
Thank you. That was a surprise. It usually starts the other end. Well, first of all, let me play on that cooperative kind of spirit, because I know there was at least one comment about how we seem to always be at other ends of the spectrum, and I think you would be proud at how our Southwestern Indiana delegation does work together, and specifically on these issues that are very personal to us, and Germania is probably one of them. I've known Glenn for a long time, worked with him at Parks, and simply said, it's in Representative McNamara's district, help us, and she went right for it, and I really do appreciate it. It's going to be a successful, I think, 3 days in August. We appreciate that. And Representative Bacon in another situation with Angel Mounds. Angel Mounds is in my district, but it was very prudent, I thought, to involve Representative Bacon, because he would have the opportunity to get some legislation through that might be a little more difficult for me, and he did a great job in spearheading getting legislation through that will advocate for Angel Mounds and a new reorganization of historic sites around our state. It's House Bill 537. And it's going to be a real transition, and he's done a great job there. This last week, we've been looking at collective bargaining and 575, and we may want to talk a little bit about that. And I have a handout back there that I often forget about. It is my printout of my electronic update that I send out weekly. And in that, I talk a little bit about I-69. And there is some confusion about I-69 from Crane Naval down to Evansville. And it actually came on the floor yesterday when the author brought the bill before us, which is 473. And as it stands, the author was saying one thing and then going back and talking with the attorney. The clarification is this, is that the I-69 from Crane Naval to Evansville can still be tolled. There are certain restrictions and there's certain things that will happen in the next 10 years, but we always want to make sure that we are out there and we're advocating for I-69. And unless you all want a toll road, I'll be advocating against a toll road. I also have taken a little bit more involvement in an issue that I studied last summer. It's called Georgia Works, and this is a project of New Hire Project, that would present a possible 4,000 more jobs and reduce or save our UI Trust Fund $10 million. And I keep advocating with DWD. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Representative McNamara.
Thank you. To kind of segue with what Representative Regan talked about, she gave me the mission of taking care of the Volksfest, and we had to find a home for it because unfortunately we got it a little bit late, and we stuck it on a Senate bill that's not germane to it, so the likelihood of that being able to live there, it can't. So that's where Vanita comes in. And then we had a second plan. This is where you have plan A, B, C, D, E, F, just to make sure it gets covered. And plan B wasn't going to work, so yesterday I worked on plan C to stick it on another alcohol bill. And we just have to get it through the germaneness of the Democrat and the Republican side, which I think will be fine. So that's been a great opportunity to try to get what we all want to take care of as the 50-year tradition of having that Volksfest, but also working together to try to take care of our community. Going back to a little bit what Jim talked about, having the constituent work if you have concerns or issues. I had constituent who lost his bobcat and the actual animal. And so last couple weeks I was involved in trying to get Bob the cat back. So, you have interesting things that I laugh. It's a story. So, you have a lot of interesting things come at you, and some are extremely interesting, and you never know where they come from. But you're happy to try to do what you can to help those things out. I want to say that with the revenue forecasts coming up, yesterday there was an announcement on the money, additional monies, $150 million going to early childhood education and full-day kindergarten. So that's a promise and a step that they had made to make sure that additional monies go to educational funding. And let's hope that the revenues continue to forecast up for the next year or so, and additional monies can go ahead and continue to head towards education. I'm calling it the hiatus, but since that's been back, it's been a very positive relationship in my opinion, and very business-like. We've been able to get a lot accomplished in a few weeks. I believe we'll meet our goal of getting everything done before sine die, and I have 30 seconds left, so I just say thank you for coming today.
Thank you. Next is Representative Crouch.
Thank you, and thank you. It's good to be here, and thank you for being here. The number one issue with people, quite honestly, we deal with a lot of issues up in Indianapolis, but the number one issue still is jobs. And jobs not only for our workers who are unemployed, but jobs for our children that are in high school and college, and our grandchildren who are coming down the line, is to have a job for those people, and a good paying job. And interestingly, small business accounts for 2/3 of the jobs that are created in the state of Indiana. 2/3 of the jobs come from small businesses. So I had a bill that passed out of the Senate and has gone to the governor for signature, and it's an entrepreneur bill. I think I touched on it earlier in January. What this bill does is a few things that I think are important. And remember, since we don't have any money, everything we do, we have to do without incurring a fiscal. It actually creates a one-stop shopping internet portal with the Secretary of State's office, so that small businesses can go 24/7. They don't have to wait to working hours. They can go and they can actually register. They can file licenses and permits. They'll be able to pay taxes. They'll be able to get refunds. And so any business that an individual or a small business has with the state of Indiana, they'll be able to do online. South Carolina's been doing that for about 5 years, and they have estimated that they have saved businesses $18 million just by allowing them to be able to do that and not incur the cost of creating a hard copy and mailing and certifying and making trips. So that is a real positive step, I think, in creating that environment that fosters business and jobs. It does a couple of other things. The Indiana Economic Development Commission is charged with working with local regional economic development commissions to come up with strategies and plans on how to better work together to try to create those jobs. Also, the Indiana Economic Development Commission is charged with working with states that neighbor Indiana to do the same thing, because no longer can we think about jobs just in our community or just in our state. We need to think about jobs and economic development regionally and certainly nationally. It also has the Commission of Higher Education taking an inventory of what kind of entrepreneur programs are out there available to college students and posting them on the website that students will be able to access all those programs that all universities and post-secondary institutions have. Is that 3 minutes?
30, no, it's 30 seconds. Nice try, though.
Okay. Anyway, thank you all for being here. I appreciate your input, and again, appreciate the fact that we're here and able to work for you. And if you have any concerns, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Representative Bacon.
She turned it off. Yeah. Well, good morning. First, I'm going to apologize if I sound a little scratchy. I'm trying to lose my voice, which my wife was thrilled when I came home, so I didn't have to talk to her. But the allergies kicked in the first part of the week because spring got here, so it's gotten really bad. Wendy was real thrilled that I couldn't talk much. What I've been doing up there at my the first one I want to talk about real quick is the concussion bill, as I call it. I was trying to get one of these bills through the House, was not able to do it through the Education Committee because of everything else that was going on. So I talked to Senator Holdman and sponsored his bill on the Senate side, so we were able to get it through. This is a protection bill for our student athletes at the high school level. So what we're going to do, the Department of Education will disseminate information to the coaches, parents, and the student athlete about the possibility of concussions and what they're going to do if it happens. If they feel they are injured during it, then they're going to be able to pull them from play. People ask, what's the difference then now? Well, what the Indiana High School Athletic Association does now, if during a game they feel that they are injured, then they pull them from the game and they have to be checked and reevaluated to be re-entered into the game. But this will cover them at practice also, because practice is where we seem to have more of the actual injuries than we are just in the game. So this is going to be a practice and games. If they're pulled from the games or the practice, they're going to have to be evaluated by a medical professional who is trained to evaluate head injuries, not just a team doctor on the field who's just a family practice guy, or just a person like me who is a respiratory therapist that had a little bit of medical background, or a nurse. With these, our athletes, both boys and girls, will have to be evaluated by someone trained in that. It's going to put a little bit of hardship on some of the smaller schools, but we feel it's worth it to protect the athletes. So that's what we've done on that, and it went through the House and the Senate now, and it's waiting for conference committee. The second one, I was really happy to work this week with Representative Rican on the State Museum bill to help out and to kind of protect Angel Mounds. The State Museum's taking over all of the 11 historic sites in the state of Indiana, putting them under one auspice, and it's really for a foundation type of situation where they can get more money and get grants and help financially with all of this. But we wanted to protect the worker bees, so that we have now the friends groups and that, and also that the Angel Mounds needs the help with the Department of Corrections, the Department of Natural Resources, and other people to help do the work that they need to do out there. It's a very unique historic site. And lastly, one I think the best thing that's happened this week on jobs is the funding for the new theater at USI was released finally. And that's going to start next end of this year or next year. And that will create a number of jobs for at least a couple of years in southern Indiana to build the new theater at southern Indiana. So I was really happy to see that happen. So thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Now it's your turn. You'll have, call your name, you'll have a couple minutes after you come up to the microphone to state your case. And we'll start on this side of the room this time. Anyone on this side, right here in the front? Please step up to the microphone and state your name, please, and then you can get right into your issue.
My name is David Elfrick. I'm a retired teacher, public and private. I have some thank yous I want to pass out. Mrs. Becker and Mr. Toms are excluded. I want to thank the Republicans for setting public education back 50 years, when classes were overcrowded with 40 students, when the principal sent me to tutor students after school at their homes without pay, when the principal would hold meetings that would last until 6 p.m., when the principal would call as many as 4 unannounced meetings a week that would cause staff members to miss doctors, dentist appointments, and other personal business, when permission had to be granted for a doctor's appointment and even for bereavement. Thank you for paying teachers for their test scores, driving devoted, compassionate, loving, excellent teachers from the inner city schools where they are the most needed. Thank you for neglecting teachers' years of experience, which is the one thing that makes a teacher a better teacher. Thank you for creating more ineffective charter schools. Thank you for establishing vouchers for students to attend private school where the children were wonderful, but where I and other teachers were yelled at by parents. I was yelled at by a Monsignor in front of my class one time. I was never yelled at in the public schools, and I felt I was more respected there. Thank you for deceptively pushing your hidden Republican agenda. Thank you for not including any of these attacks in your campaigns. I can't imagine any teacher or working person even thinking about voting Republican in the future. There are approximately 3 to 5% of teachers that should be doing something else. However, there are about 60% of our legislators that should be elsewhere.
Okay? So to summarize that, you're unhappy with school decisions. Anybody has a different take on that same issue? Okay. Hearing none, any responses from the legislators? Remember, you have 2 minutes each also. Okay, sounds good to me. We'll move on to the next issue. We are on this side of the room now. Anybody on this side of the room that has an issue that they'd like to bring up? Yes, I see your hand up in the back. Please step forward to the microphone. And state your name, and then you can get right into your issue.
Jim Gorman, and I apologize. I too, like Representative Bacon, I'm losing my voice. I just want to say thanks to all of our legislators that are providing support to Right to Life. This has been my lifelong passion, if you will. And I know budgets, jobs, excuse me, everything that everyone is talking about that you're working on is very important. But the bottom line is, without people, and people come from babies, none of these issues are important. And thank you very much for your support for Right to Life.
Thank you. And is there anyone in the audience that has, well, first of all, to summarize, he is supporting Right to Life. Is there anyone from the audience that has a different take on the same issue? I saw a hand back there first. Please step up to the microphone. You have 1 minute. State your name, please.
Okay, I'm Roberta Hyman. And my response to cutting off funds for Planned Parenthood, what is the plan for using those funds now? Will they go to other services for women's health? My issue is women's health, and this legislative session seems to have been an assault on women by cutting off funds for our pap smears, for our other services that we can get at certain clinics. So are you going to take that money that's being cut off from the Planned Parenthood and put it to other women's health services, or to even better children's welfare services, to services for children after they're born that are stuck in this child welfare system that's so underfunded and understaffed? So I would like to know what's going to be done with that money, rather than just an assault on women's health services.
Okay, thank you. Now it's time for responses from the legislators. Each will have an opportunity at 2 minutes each, if you want it. Senator Thomas was first.
Well, first,
No, it's not on.
I want to thank Jim. I'm strong pro-life as well, and I appreciate your comments. And I know that's a divisive issue, and I think the people are entitled to know where their legislators stand on that without being fuzzy about it. And I just think that a nation that kills its little babies can't expect blessings from God. That's just how I feel, and I'm just expressing that to you. As far as the funding of, and maybe Benita can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but as I understand it, the House bill that would defund Planned Parenthood, that money would still be there for those assistance for women, and it would just not allow the taxpayer money to go toward the abortion process. If I'm not right, she's going to correct me.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Becker then.
Well, let me just explain. First of all, I know where Jim got that information, but it's a little confusing because right now in the state of Indiana, our law, as well as federal law, prohibits any federal or state funding for abortions. It's not allowed in the state of Indiana or at the federal level. But what this bill did that came from the House is it just said that if an entity performs abortions, whether it be for rape, incest, or even to say, I think maybe it was exempt saving the mother's life, and I haven't really looked at it that close. I'm sure Ron Bacon can tell us more about it. But my concern is really just to make sure that women have access to reproductive health, that they have access to pap smears, that they have access for cancer treatment. I know people who have gone for cancer treatment to Planned Parenthood, and without that, they would probably have lost their lives. We are underfunded as well as clinics. Now, I'm not sure, there's still some issues to be looked at. I think if you want, it's already clear that this money cannot be used to perform abortions. But I guess my concern is that women who need access to pap smears for cancer treatment will not, birth control pills. Folks, if you want to prevent abortion, you ought to be supporting contraceptives and the ability for women to have access to contraceptives. One initiative has already indicated that if this is done in the state of Indiana, it will increase Medicaid costs by $68 million. So I'm not sure what we're saving in the long run, but it's really a philosophical argument, and I'm just very concerned that women still have access to health care that they need, especially low-income women, because they're the ones that get hurt the most in all of this.
Okay, thank you. Responses from representatives. Representative Bacon.
As Senator Becker said, and my recollection of the bill is true, it did include the mother doing the abortion to save the mother's life. It was in that was in the bill. And as she said, also it is just also to not take the funding away from Planned Parenthood or any other ones that do. It's just the ones that do perform abortions. The funding would still be there just to make sure it's not for abortions. The women's health care services that are done by Planned Parenthood can also be gotten from other Title X clinics and that throughout the state, in which there are 5 or 6 between Warwick and Vanderbilt County down here. So they are available. It's not saying about defunding you could defund Planned Parenthood right now completely, take them off the face of the earth, and you would still be able to get those services from other clinics that are available in our local area that do not do or perform abortions. And that is the fact. It's here. So the money is still there. And so we need to remember that. So we're not trying to take anything away from that. And to answer the contraceptive question, we did have a bill, and I wish I had brought some information on that also, but we did in one of the Medicaid bills that we did in the Public Health Committee, which I sit on, is try to increase funding for contraceptive for Medicaid to help in this regard. So thank you.
Thank you. Other legislators? Okay, we'll move on to another issue then. We are back on this side, right up here in the front. Please step up to the microphone and state your name, and then you can get into your issues. John?
I'm Carol Davis, and I have an advocacy organization for children after they're born. I don't think they should be aborted, their well-being after they're born either. And just to show you, there's no big gang of collective bargaining here today like there has been, because after the children are born, it seems like they have no collective bargaining. And I'm quite sure most of you would not want me to investigate any crime that was committed against you. You would think that's what the police agency's for. Right now, children, any crime that's committed against them, you have to call Child Protective Services. The police department even has to call Child Protective Services, and they are allowed to investigate crimes against children. Now, if we had collective bargaining for children after they're born, maybe they would have some rights, but right now they have none. And I have as much training as the child welfare workers have, some of them. But yet we do not allow the police department to investigate crimes against children. Now, if you all don't think there's something wrong with that, then you're about your own narcissistic agendas. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to summarize that as you're supporting collective bargaining for children.
That'd be good.
Okay. Is there anyone that has a different take on the same issue? Different take on the same issue. Seeing none, it's time for legislators' responses. Did you have a different take? I'm sorry, I thought your hand was not up. Just scratching your nose. Okay. Responses from legislators. Senator Becker.
I appreciate that, Carol, and I share the concern. I know there were changes made locally, and I went to a meeting. It's been about a year and a half ago, and they promised us that it would not impede investigations. But I think some of the changes made through DCS have exactly done that and made it more difficult. And I appreciate you bringing it up once again. I just think that we ought to have it. It even hinders the ability of the local child protective services from doing what they've done in the past. I mean, they have to call Indianapolis and try to get permission to investigate something, and then Indianapolis tries to determine whether or not it's a valid concern or not, and I don't think that's the way we ought to be operating.
The police department even has to call an 800 number to...
I mean, that's ludicrous.
It's worse than that.
Okay. Other responses, legislators? Representative Rican?
Thank you. Did I turn? Oh, I think I just turned it off. Now it's on? Okay, thank you. I had a couple of bills that didn't get a hearing to try to look into those issues. One was to be specific about youth, and the other one was specifically about finding out the statistics and working up some improvements, hopefully, that we could advocate. I do hope that we can continue finding out more, learning more. I request to the Speaker at this point to have a study committee, even though we didn't get it through the legislature, on youth and placement, bringing up some of those issues. So I think we just need to keep fighting and opening up the door. Transparency, accountability is real important in that whole issue.
Thank you. Other legislators? Okay, we'll move on to the next issue. We're on this side of the room again. Saw a hand right back there. Yes. Please step up to the microphone and state your name, please.
My name's Ray Brown. I didn't come here to talk on this issue, but because of it wasn't women's rights was not talked about. I would like to say that humans are an endangered species, but not because there's too few of us. It's because there's too many of us. 3,000 years ago, there was 50 million people in the entire world. Today, there's 7 billion. 40 years from now, there'll be 14 billion. We're headed towards standing room only with nothing to eat. And so I support a woman's right to choose. That's, I guess, where I stand.
Okay, we've already handled that issue, though. But I do understand you're opposed to overpopulation. But we won't really go any more into that because we've already touched base on that one. You just slipped it in. That was lucky on your part. We'll go back to this side now. See right here, Lynn. Please step up to the microphone.
Hi, my name's Glenn Boberg. I'm representing Germania Menacor. I'm here with Paul Bachsteige also. I'm here just to thank representatives and senators for helping us at Germania. The problem was the current laws were going to hinder our annual event that we have held for the last 50 years, and as a history of our club for over almost 111 years, Germania has been founded. And this is we felt this was part of our culture and our heritage, and to continue our annual Folk Fest, it is just a continuing of our culture and our heritage and our community. And I want to commend all the representatives and senators for your cooperation and collaboration. And auf Deutsch, danke, vielen Dank.
Thank you. I want to summarize that as thanking them for their support for Germania Manicor's Volkfest. Is there anybody that's opposed to that has a different take on that issue? Okay, this is Southern Indiana. Okay, responses from legislators.
She wants wants you to explain it.
Explain, I don't understand. What, Bill, what happened?
Well, the ABC.
We're gonna get into that.
I think
You can go first.
Sorry, Martha. The Alcoholic Beverage Commission has decided to enforce the current law that says you can only have a festival day 1 day a month. And you could do it every month for 6 months, but you can only do it 1 day a month. Germania Manicore is held once a year for 3 days in 1 month.
Is that new?
No, it's not new. It's just a matter that the state is enforcing. They have a different commissioner for the ABC, and he's now enforcing current law that says, and in the past they've given waivers to communities that had like 2 or 3 days out of 1 month. They've given them a waiver and they won't do that anymore. So that's why we need to change the law so that these types of festivals can continue to be held throughout the state. Otherwise, they will lose a lot of business, and it hurts something that, as you heard, has been going on for 150 years.
Okay, thank you. Next is Representative Rican.
I just wanted to say that the, is it on now? No, it should go. Now it's on?
No, it should be towards you.
Now it's on? I don't know. It's not working. Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to say the proper way maybe that you might want to thank us is to entertain us with your song fest on the floor of the State House. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next would be Senator Toms, then Representative McNamara.
Well, I got the notice about all that too, Glenn, and so everybody understands it's not just the Germania Manicore that can be affected, but a lot of the like, for example, our St. Wendell Beer Stew would also be affected. There's a lot of, throughout the state, and in this area in particular, that could be affected by this. So I'm going to do all I can we can roll that back to where these organizations can still have those festivals.
Thank you. Next is Representative McNamara.
It was kind of an interesting scenario when Representative Rican came to me on the floor of the House because we didn't have the ability to place it in a bill except for the very next morning because committee hearings are basically done. And so we're sitting there on the House floor with Representative Stemler, and he is the chairman of the Commerce Committee, and trying to figure out how to get this done. And what we did was, in the amendment that came out of the House that was placed on the Senate bill, I believe we asked for 9 consecutive days. That way it would cover any of the 7-day events that, let's say, for example, might want to have alcohol in the future or that sort of thing. And Representative Stemler had a problem in his community as well that he needed to address. So hopefully with the extension of the number of days per month, we actually increased the number of days per month that you could have. We increased the consecutive days that you could have up to 9. And there's something else we did to it, but I can't remember. But when I was discussing earlier that, I had plan A, B, C, and D, it was placed in a bill that it had nothing to do with alcohol, and that generally doesn't go through. So backup is always good to have. I'm going to place it in another bill that'll be heard on Monday. With the permission of that author. That one actually does deal with alcohol licensing and that sort of thing. So I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to get it done, but we keep our fingers crossed.
Okay, thank you. Representative Crouch.
Glenn, when is the event this year? I mean, this is on TV. We can give you a plug. August 4th, 5th, and 6th? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Bacon.
Just to do a little clarification for Arthur's part, what they were allowing them to do to get the 3 days was to use, it was 1 day per month, so they could basically sort of like save up your days and use all 3 days for 3 months or 1 quarter. So they were allowing them to get around the law that way, sort of the way of doing it. But the new commissioner now, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to enforce the rules as is. So we're not going to allow them to do that. So that brought up the issue of us having to find a way to change the law. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next issue. That's this side of the room. See a hand right up here in the front. Please step up to the microphone and state your name, please.
My name is Frank Coleman, and currently live in the 4th Ward. And over the past probably 6 to 8 months, I've had several instances of meth busts and continued. My wife's a school teacher at Bossy High School, and after some of our students here in Evansville and Vanderburgh County get out, they sometimes cannot find focus, as mentioned. Not only the development of a child once after they're born, but then education is to take them K through 12 and educate them and mentor them, and then once they get out of high school, they're kind of left on their own again. And so my question is, I heard something about a couple of meth bills that are either currently going through the House. Is that correct? And okay, so I would just kind of like to see what those bills, how they're going to help our community out.
Okay, thank you. The question is about what bills are currently in the General Assembly about meth labs. Anybody has that's just the inquiry there. So there's really not much of a different take on that, on an inquiry. So we'll start with responses from legislators. First is Representative Bacon, then Representative Crouch.
The methamphetamine bills were in public health, which is the committee I sit on. So there were 2 bills in the House regarding this. One was to make methamphetamine, it's already a behind the counter, but to make it a controlled substance where you'd have to get a doctor's prescription to get it. That was one. The other one is to do tracking, and that was number 2. Both of these were very contentious and really debated heavily in the House. And what happened, neither one of the bills actually got to the floor or got out of committee. What Dr. T. Brown, who is the head of the committee, State Representative Crawfordsville, tried to do was to combine the 2 bills together to basically try and please all parties to do that. Didn't work out too well to do. We actually didn't get either one of them the way we wanted them. The problem with the first one was you're taking away the rights of individuals to legally get the substance that they want, this methamphetamine or the pseudoephedrine, which they need to buy over the counter to take care of these allergy problems, which I have. But I'm one of the ones, as my 6 years behind the corner, think that we really seriously need to look at that because we have a huge, serious problem. And I know that it's going to create some problems with good law-abiding citizens, but we have a massive problem that's costing us an immense amount of money. So I was pushing for the one. The other one is the tracking, and the tracking bill seems to have more people behind it. The problem with the tracking is it's wanting to be done by the drug companies, which I don't like because the ISP, the Indiana State Police, already has a tracking program and it's going to cause a problem. And that's the one that's actually being presented right now through the Senate bill. And Jim told me I had to quit talking.
Thank you. Next is Representative Crouch, then Representative McNamara.
Thank you. I also serve on the Health Committee with Representative Bacon, and we did have a lot of testimony. The state police seemed to line up, and law enforcement seemed to line up on the prescription, and then doctors lined up on the e-tracking, the tracking system. And one of the advantages to the tracking system, and it was presented in a bill and we did vote on it, one of the advantages that was raised, it's not perfect, but it allows pharmacists to see in real time if someone has purchased and when they purchased and where they purchased. So that with that not only the state, but we have a couple of neighboring states that use that same system. So you come in and you're going to, want some Claritin D, they can put your name and your information in, and they can see when and where you bought it. They'll be able to see not only in Indiana, but in the neighboring states that use that system. So while it's not perfect, and while we may end up having to go to the prescription, it's better than what we have right now.
Thank you. And next is Representative McNamara, then Representative Regan.
I can't remember the number of the bill, and that's usually the hard part. Is the Senate bill on tracking went through this past week. What's interesting for me, about 2 weeks ago, I remember it was really very windy outside, and we had the mile per hour winds or whatever those were. About 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm woken to fire truck after fire truck going past my house because a meth house had exploded just down the street from my home on that very windy night. And the concern is, of course, of the flames spreading and that sort of thing. I actually voted against the tracking bill, and I did because I firmly believe it needs to be a prescription, because that's the only way to stop the meth problem from happening. There's no other drug that they can use other than pseudoephedrine to actually make the meth product. I've been assured of that by my pharmacist friend who's a representative. I've been assured that there's different degrees of meth that you can make, but with pseudoephedrine, it's the one that gives you the extreme high or whatever you get off of meth. So I voted against the tracking because right now we have tracking. It's an imperfect method. This is asking retailers again and pharmacists again to spend additional monies to continue to track something. The folks that I have talked to in law enforcement say that it's an imperfect system, and really the only way to solve this problem is through prescription, and that's my take on it. I want to touch real quick on something else. I'm on the courts committee, and we did address the issue of K2 and spice last week, and looking at other types of elements that kids are getting their hands on and that are affecting our community, and that bill will be heard on the floor this week, I believe. So,
thank you. Next is Representative Regan, then Senator Thomas.
Thank you. Is it on now? Okay. I've approached it from just a little different standpoint. Oh, I'm sorry, it must be broken. From a little different standpoint, and that had to do with neighborhood associations and actually being able to, if there's that kind of problem and a property is determined to be legally a drug nuisance or a common nuisance, that the renter can now be evicted by a landlord. That's law. It's a certain process, but they can get them out. What's happened is that the renters have turned into land contract buyers. Gotten pretty smart, so they've gotten around the law. And what we need to do is to be able to also, in some way, allow the owner of the property to have some say in getting that land contract voided. It's really tricky. There was a lot of pushback. There's a lot more discussion that needs to happen, but we're going to continue to work on that. It's actually being able to protect that person's right who has that land contract, but also it's the collective people that live around, and you don't want those folks in your neighborhood. So we'll continue to work on the language and try to get that legal so that we can get it in place. But that would allow the landlord or the owner of that property to vacate that property where if they know it's a drug nuisance house.
Thank you. Next is Senator Thomas.
Thank you. On the Senate, we had a lot of testimony and corrections about the meth and pseudoephedrines. We had a lot of testimony. There was people on both sides of this argument. We had one law enforcement from Kentucky that give a very compelling testimony that the tracking worked much better, and I agreed with it because it is at the point of sale that it comes under scrutiny. And I am just not willing to subject citizens to pay out of pocket more money by classifying or making ephedrine products a prescription medicine and requiring them to go to their doctor and pay a copay then to get this cough medicine. We have so much right now of prescription medicine that is being illegally used. We read about it in the paper, Oxycontin, you name it. And I don't see any evidence that by making ephedrine products a controlled product will have any substantive improvement on the meth problems we're dealing with. And an example of that, we also had discussion about the spice, the K2 products. And in that bill, I think there was 19 products, 19 items, components that would be banned that's used in the spice products. That bill was only days old when we had to go back and amend it and add another 7, I think, or something like that to it. So my question is, where do we stop on making prescription medicine or classifying things that's going to be controlled substances? Where do we stop at? I mean, we have kids that buy spray paint and they huff this paint. Are we going to classify that, though? You'd have to have a permission to get spray paint. We have a breakdown in our society, but by taking products that the general public uses legally and making it more difficult for them to acquire those products is not the answer. And so I wouldn't support classifying ephedrine products and making that prescription medicine. I just want to share that with you.
Okay, thank you. Time to move on to the, I'm sorry. She hit me. She enjoyed that way too much, though. Next is Senator Becker.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that, I know that this is a problem, but I guess I would have to come down on the same side as Senator Tom's. And my concern is that there are a lot of people out here that don't have doctors. There's a lot of low-income families that have allergy problems, that have colds, that need access to legal medication. And to force them to have to go to a doctor that they don't have, in many cases, they don't have a doctor. And it will end up costing Medicaid, for those that are on Medicaid, a lot more money. It will end up costing the state a lot more money to control a legal substance. Certainly, I think that the tracking system is not perfect, but I think we ought to give the new process a chance. Because again, as Senator Tom says, kids, I can remember in grade school, kids sniffed glue, and they got high on that, and it's horrible. But are we going to make glue illegal? I mean, I think that we can just get carried away, and it really is a sense of responsibility on the part of the public and on parents to make sure and to know what their kids are actually taking and being aware. And some of them, and I want to say this, parents sometimes can do everything within their power, and they still end up with children that don't respond, and that's unfortunate because many of them have mental health issues. If we want to get into all these issues, we're doing a lot of things. We're cutting mental health services. We're cutting health care services. I mean, all of these things that in the long run is just going to end up costing us as a state more money because we're going to end up incarcerating more people, and in the long run, we're not going to be saving any money.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to another issue, and we're back on this side of the room. See a person back there in the purple? Yeah, Charlie. Come on up to the microphone, please. State your name, and then you can get right into your issue.
My name is Charlie Lukey, and I may be a little out of date here because I've had too many issues to read the paper here the last few days. Vouchers for education, is that still alive? Okay. I really like that. First of all, I like what the state's done with education this year. And I like the idea of vouchers. And I think our vouchers are at a level that's too low. They need to be raised to reflect the total amount that we spend per student per year. And maybe lower the cap we've established to get this started, because I can understand there's some concern about taking money away from public schools. Maybe that cap needs to be lowered to get this thing started, to get some experience so we have something to look back on once it's started. But I believe it's responsible, and I think it really addresses a lot of needs in the rural area where there are less choices for schools. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to summarize that by saying that you support education vouchers.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone that has a different take on the same subject? Yes. Please step forward to the microphone and state your name, and you'll have a minute.
Thank you.
My name is Dan Hartz. I'm a resident of Vanderbilt County. I am opposed to any voucher bill because the voucher bill provides an opportunity for parents to choose to send, who have traditionally chose to send their children to private schools, to now have the public dollars support private schools. I also think that there are lots of opportunities for parents to send children, specifically in charter schools, not only here but across the state, that have been expanded and will continue to be expanded based upon the legislation that's there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is the responses from legislators. Hands from legislators. I don't see any. Yeah, you want Senator Thomas?
Yeah, I'll wade through that minefield.
I'm proud of you. Taking point in the minefield.
That's right. Well, you know, this bill is coming our way, and all of these legislators are going to have to show their hand sooner or later on this measure. As I said before, that's what these meetings are about. Find out where your representative stands. I guess I could keep my mouth shut and hide and hold out till the time has come to cast that vote. I've had a lot of emails and phone calls and letters on this voucher system. And I try to always accept and digest everything that comes to me and reason out what would be the best process. My concern is that when state money starts flowing into these private schools, that it's only a matter of time before the state will start dictating curriculums in those private schools. I might be wrong, but I've had too many times in my life tell me where government said, this will never happen. And the next thing I hear is, well, it'll never happen again. So because of that, I'm reluctant to support vouchers on that reason. Another standpoint is that, as you said, the parents who are paying out of their pocket high dollar money to send their kids to private schools, when they see that another parent can pull their child out of a public school and come into that private school and get assistance, and money is going to come with that student, they're going to see it this way, and this is the letters I get. Why am I paying for my own child in this private school plus taxes that's subsidizing the child that's coming in from the public schools? It's something we can't ignore, and fair is fair. Right's right, wrong is wrong. And I don't think it's right that that's the way we would do that. So I don't support the vouchers. And I think there's other issues to bring into play on this, but those are two of the, I think, major points. So I just want you to know that's where I'm at on this. And I know we're instructed never to say what you will do, but I've been on the limb before, and I just, again, I think that you're entitled to know. And I've told them up there in the State House where I'm at too, so what I say to you is nothing they haven't heard from me already.
Okay, thank you. Next is Representative Rican.
Thank you.
And Representative Crouch.
Appreciate it. I think my stand's been fairly clear on both charters and vouchers, and that is that I do oppose the charter bill. I think that we have in Evansville two very fine charters, and I see the benefit of charters, but it is a bill that will just unleash opportunities, I think, for more charters across the state, and we simply cannot afford what I think is going to be a floodgate of monies from our public school system. I think also that one thing that we just haven't talked about that really concerns me is that we don't talk about improving the system that we have now. We're talking about a whole new system of schools when I think that we have some exemplary schools here in our schools in Vanderburgh County. They've been doing it. Glenwood School, for instance, is probably as close to a charter school, getting away from all the restrictions in a regular school that anyone can get in a public school system. Why aren't we looking more at that? So I think that we haven't explored all the things that we're doing here at Lincoln School. We just say we have to have something new, and then we look at the statistics and where these new charter schools are falling, and it is not at the top, folks. It's at the bottom. And folks just don't want to talk about that. You know, we have what shall I say? Seniors to School is not the norm. It is an exciting example of the best in our nation, but it's not the norm across the state. So I think we need to look at what we have now and improve on what we have, because we have, and here in the schools in Vanderburgh, it's great. So I am not supporting the vouchers, and I'm not supporting the charter school bill.
Thank you. Next is Representative Crouch.
Thank you. I did support vouchers and voted for it. And the Supreme Court and many state courts have upheld the constitutionality of vouchers, so it's not new. It's happening in other states. I think 20-some-odd states have vouchers. And as Vice Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, I heard her testimony on bills and on issues from all over the state. And not all of the state is as fortunate as we are here in Southwest Indiana with the good schools that we have. So vouchers empower parents and give them choices for their children. And to me, there is nothing wrong with that. And so I support vouchers.
Okay. Next is Representative Bacon.
Just wanted to reiterate to Charlie why this side did not immediately speak up, is because we have been vetting this. This has already gone through the House. Every one of us on this side are already on record numerous times for the vouchers and what we feel and how we voted on it. So we know it's a contentious issue. It has a lot of the community divided, a lot of the teachers divided, and the reason it was brought to the way it was with all the amendments was for the reason that we know that we are in a financial difficulty right now. We're not quite sure financially if the state can tolerate this. So we did bring it down to the numbers that we did. And we made it very difficult to do vouchers at this time if it continues that way through the Senate and ends up like that. So that was the purpose of that. So, and that was the reason for it, is because of our financial conditions. So it is something we need to look at and be very careful on how we do it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Other legislators? Yes, Senator Becker.
The voucher bill, first of all, let me just tell you that I did ask my district. I sent out not registered, but newsletters with tear-offs so that people in my Senate district could respond as to how they felt about all these issues. 73% of the people that responded, and I had about 2,300 responses, which is a large percentage. If you're doing a survey, that's a huge percentage. 73% were opposed to unlimited charter schools in my district, and so I followed the wishes of my district. I voted no. 68% are also opposed to vouchers, and I intend to respect those views in representing people and to vote no. First of all, it takes $68 million away from public schools at a time when we've already cut, over the last 2 years, $600 million from public schools. And you know, folks, we're not even doing remediation. We're expecting kids to do better. We're expecting teachers to do better. And 10 years ago, we funded remediation, which is helping kids. When you find out they have a problem, you provide extra resources to bring those children up to speed. Last year, the state spent $6 million. 10 years ago, they spent $20 million. We have no money for professional development, and yet we're expecting teachers to do better. And I guess I just think we ought to be funding some of the things, Public Law 221 for one thing, which has not been funded since it was been implemented, to bring these standards up. We're asking kids to do better. We're asking teachers to do better. We also need to be putting more responsibility on parents so that their children are there to learn when they're supposed to be. And unfortunately, none of these bills, I think we do have one amendment that tries to advance in that direction, but it is very difficult. And so I'm not a voucher proponent, because I also have concerns about what the state strings will be. And believe you me, folks, there will be strings. First of all, you can't get the money unless you intend to give I-STEP. Evansville Day School has already said they do not intend to give I-STEP tests. They use other tests that they think are better. Personally, I think we ought to eliminate I-STEP, and we could save about $40 million a year. So, because again, it's only one test at one time, and it really does not. It's now, when Bob Orr was governor and he implemented these programs, he did it with remediation, and he did it to help kids. Now it's being used against children, it's being used against teachers, and it's being used against schools. And I think that's unfortunate.
Okay, thank you. We move on to another issue. We are back to this side of the room. I see a hand right up here. And yes, please step forward to the microphone. And state your name, and then you can get right into your issue.
My name is Wayne Park, and my question has to do with redistricting. I would be interested in that each state legislator state their view on their particular district and what they think about it as a whole, as far as the what they know about the redistricting situation.
Okay, that's just an inquiry about redistricting, so we'll ask for responses from the legislators, and the first will be Representative Crouch.
I think all of our districts change. Every 10 years after the census, then the legislature redraws the districts that representatives and senators are in to reflect the population shifts that have taken place. My district, my old district, which was parts of Vanderburgh, Warwick, and a little bit of Spencer County, actually gained 12,000. I was 12,000 over the 60,000 I'm supposed to represent. And so I lost population in the redistricting, and my district now represents a smaller part, well, no, I don't know, a different part of Vanderburgh and a smaller part of Warwick, and none of Spencer County. So my district has changed. And I'll happily represent the people that are in my new district just as I did the people that are in my current district. So.
Thank you. Next is Senator Toms, then Representative McNamara.
I just want to say I had almost nothing to input on how they drew the lines, but looking at the maps, all I can say about it is it did look like they took a lot of effort to square things up a little bit. It's a little more geometrical, and I think and I hope that's the case, because I know a lot of folks are confused sometimes on where they lie in the districts because of the way they had been drawn. So. Hopefully, these new maps will help the citizens recognize where they're at in those boundaries. That's all.
Thank you. Next is Representative McNamara.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate that it is still a proposal at this time, although that it did come out of committee on Friday. Is that right? Mm-hmm. There'll probably be numerous amendments to it and changes and tweaks here and there. But it is still a proposal. They're still vetting through what they look like. And it's still difficult to tell because you can't zoom in and actually see street level or precinct level. You can read through the bill and find out where each precinct is, but like just to visualize it on a map, you can't do that. For my case, went from 3 counties in my representation to 2. So I think that's a better way to be able to represent folks is, not spreading yourself thin amongst 3 and be able to focus on the interests of those folks. So just want to reiterate, it's still a proposal at this time. There will be some tweaks here and there, but like Representative Crouch says, I'm happy to represent whomever winds up in my district.
Okay. Next is Representative Bacon, then Senator Becker.
I'm really disappointed that the maps aren't up on the wall like they usually are, so everyone could see my old compacted district that I was representing, the 3 counties and crossing 2 or 3 other districts to get to. Because I'm extremely disappointed you can't see that, so that now that the new district is very compacted and represents a group and an area. So it's almost all of Warwick County. And a little bit of Spencer County down on the end. It connects to Warwick and the Rockport area, and then approximately half of Pike County, but it connects directly to Warwick County in the rural area. So I think looking at how they did that, it did work out pretty good. It did cut out a little bit of Warwick, the Ohio Township in Warwick County, and left that with part of Representative Crouch's area, but that east side of Evansville and the west side of Newburgh does tend to be a community of interest and togetherness in that area. What I was kind of concerned and disappointed is the northern part of Representative Crouch's supposedly new district that really takes up Scott Township and puts him up in the same district as Vincennes. And I'm looking at that, and like I said, we need to continue to talk and try and get some amendments to do the tweaking that needs to be done. Some of this doesn't look well, but I'm very happy with the way mine turned out. I was very disappointed to lose some of my district because I had some very, very good voters in there that I was very happy to represent. But as I said, I will represent whoever I have also very graciously.
Thank you. Next is Senator Becker, then Representative Regan.
think Representative Bacon touched on the concern that I have, and that's with Scott Township. Going up into several counties, all the way up to Vincennes, where a representative would, I don't know how many counties that includes, but at least 5. And to me, that's not putting communities of interest together. I mean, what in the world does McCutcheonville, Scott Township have in conjunction with Vincennes, Indiana, and all those small counties, rural counties in between? So I don't know if they'll fix that. I doubt it. They fix it. I do think the congressional districts are more compact, and they will be easier for people to tell where their congressional representative is. As far as our Senate, we haven't seen, if you go in and look at the bill, after each Senate district, it has 0. I mean, it doesn't have anything. There's no language yet that we have seen. I've looked at what they proposed to give me and said, I'll take whatever you give me, I guess, because I have no choice. I have to lose 9,500 people, and yet now I'm going to be representing people that many of them I have represented at some point over the years, but for me to lose 9,500 and then end up with people I've never represented doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. But we'll still work through that, and I will certainly, like I said, at one time or another over the years I've represented a lot of folks. My district is just basically in Vandenberg and Warwick counties, and that's good. That continues the tradition. And he says I have 0 time. So.
30 seconds.
Oh, 30 seconds. We'll give you
3 and 0.
Hopefully we will have information before we vote on these things so that we know which precincts. We have no precinct information as to which precincts we represent or even complete townships. Thank you.
Thank you. Lastly would be Representative Rican.
Thank you. Oops. Appreciate it, Wendy. I've attended a couple of the meetings where they've discussed the maps. It's interesting, something that comes up once every 10 years, and you just really don't pay a whole lot of attention to it. So knowing what the parameters were, the points of discussion, or what they were concentrating on was just kind of interesting to me. And it appears that the perimeters and making these more compact was one thing I heard a lot about. I heard a lot about communities of interest. There is no surefire definition of what communities of interest is, and that was by Mr. Representative Cook. It's not. It is more determined, I guess, by whoever's drawing up the map. But I think you could see that there appears to be more communities of interest together. There was quite a bit of discussion by Representative Delaney. He wanted to get into the politics of it. And Representative Delaney is from Marion County, Indianapolis, Democrat, and was very interesting in talking about the pretense of not being political. And I just want to offer this to you, that prior to these maps, the maps that we have right now, there are 24 so-called competitive districts. A competitive district being defined by between 47 and 53% matching Republican Democrat. There were 24. On the Democrat new plan that was offered, it's been increased to 26 of those districts. On the Republican plan, there are only 14. I don't know, that means that predominantly it's been drawn to favor the Republican Party. I don't know whether you want to accept that or not. Personally, I'm very pleased with my with what I have. I ran citywide for many years, so I think I'm going to have a little bit more concentration in an area of a city that I used to be more involved in as well. So I'm just pleased I'll be able to get out and meet some new people or make some new friends that I haven't seen in a long time as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're back down to a new issue. We're back to this side of the room on the aisle. Please step forward and state your name. Summarize the issue, and that is you're stating that Senate Bill 575 guts collective bargaining, so you're opposed to Senate Bill 575.
That is correct.
Okay. 574?
In its current form.
In its current form, okay. Thank you. Is there anyone with a different take on the same issue in the audience? A different take on the same issue in the audience? Yes, in the very back. Please step forward to the microphone. State your name and you'll have a minute to rebut.
Hi, my name's Chuck Huber. I don't have a different take in the sense that I'm for the bill. I'm also opposed to it, but I'd ask for some clarification because I received communication that they've somehow now included other school employees like custodians that you can't bargain over seniority rights, and I have a difficult time understanding how anybody could with a straight face make an argument that that somehow impacts the education process if a custodial, maintenance, bus driver has some sort of right to bargain. And the reason I really have a difficult time understanding how why that should be amended to include it is there's no public employee bargaining law in the first place for these non-certified employees. And explain to me the logic of if a local school board wants to bargain with a group that is represented, why those rights should be restricted, why the state should be sticking their nose in the local affairs of the local school corporations.
Okay, thank you. Now it's time for responses from legislators. Well, actually, Representative Crouch was first, then Representative McNamara.
Thank you. I appreciate that. A lot of these issues that come before us are very difficult, and you have to listen to both sides of the issue. And, you know, sometimes that's a struggle because both sides make very good arguments and very good presentations. But to me, this bill wasn't about teachers and school corporations. It was about children, and teachers and school superintendents here in Southwest Indiana have stayed very focused on what's best for children. But as I mentioned earlier, as Vice Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, I hear testimony and hear debate on all parts of the state. And let me assure you that all parts of the state are not as fortunate as we are here in Southwest Indiana, where we have a cooperative attitude and work well together. So that's my response.
Thank you. Next is Representative McNamara, then Representative Rican.
Thank you. To try to answer your question, there are many people that choose to belong to an association. There are people that choose not to because of philosophical or even financial reasons. And the way a lot of contracts that are written prohibit, and the reason I use the word all teachers have a determination in their future is because not really that doesn't really exist under current contractual obligations. If I have a teacher come to me and wants to be placed on a committee so that they can have a voice in writing curriculum or have a voice in choosing textbooks, they're told they have to be a member of the association to be able to be placed on that committee. That does not give all teachers a voice. 575 gives all teachers a vested interest in their building and what they have to say that goes on there. There are two schools that have tried for the last 10 plus years to go and become block scheduling schools. Only the people that get a vote on the determination of that future of that schools are association members. It's denying the right of teachers who really want to be a part of the process and really be a part of the curriculum and really be a part of the impacting of the everyday daily lives of kids, and the association prevents them from doing it because of statute, gives them the exclusive rights to place people on committees, gives them the exclusive contractual rights to give them the opportunities to do things that they don't allow every teacher to do. And that's where I really come from, is giving all teachers the right to speak on their behalf and participate on their behalf. And really, I think, thank you, I really think, you know, it comes down to those philosophical differences of that thing. All teachers have a vested interest and have a caring attitude about their school. I just really believe that all teachers, regardless of where they stand on the issue, need to be able to have the opportunity to participate. And currently, that just doesn't take place.
Thank you. Next is Representative Rican.
Thank you. We seem to always have one that peters out at our meetings. I think collective bargaining can really, what shall I say? It can end in a better contract. I look at what I've seen with this equity schools, and I've seen the training that the teachers have gone through, and it's all been through a process where the representatives of the teachers working with the administration have sat down, have worked out the best plan, and it brings everybody on board. It doesn't develop factions, but I see that it brings everybody on board, and the end is a better product. So I look at it a little differently. Having been, on both sides, watching from the city council, and then also being in administration locally and on the state, I still have the same feeling. It is better if we all have the opportunity and we have representation to make contracts that benefit folks. And maybe not everybody gets what they want, but I'm constantly reminded of being in a position up in room 336, and I said to the speaker at that time, Mr. Speaker Bauer, I don't like where my desk is. I'm right here and they all know I'm right here in the middle of everything. And I said, you can't even carry on a conversation. And he reminded me that I had no seniority. It happens in every profession. I just want to point that out. And as well as extending the contract to the other the custodians and the bus drivers and just down the line. I too am very, very concerned about why we're doing that, and it really does fly in the face of the entire reason of why we got into collective bargaining anyway in 575. I think it's just a desire to break the unions.
Thank you. Next is Senator Toms. Senator Toms, then
yes,
Senator
sir.
Becker.
Okay. The collective bargaining, I know on 575 it's dealing with the teachers, but collective bargaining in itself is a vital tool that labor needs and uses in negotiating contracts. And just going to be brief on this. Any attempt to muzzle an element of that contract process, and that's what would happen when you try to restrict collective bargaining, is an unfair process. It's unfair procedure. And I don't support any attempt to try to take that ability away from organized labor and elements that are represented by unions. I don't support that attempt to hold them back in the process of negotiating a contract that affects them directly. And there's a lot of issues that come into play. It goes well beyond wages and benefits. There's other elements to their job description that needs to be discussed and need to be discussed openly by both parties involved. And I want everybody to understand when we talk about labor issues to be sure you know the full scope of what we're dealing with here, and any attempts that we go after, the impact it can have. So, just for the record, that I don't support any kind of approach to dismantle the collective bargaining process. I just want to be on record for that.
Okay, thank you. Next is Senator Becker, then Representative Bacon.
I guess I have a lot of concerns because this was not an issue that was talked about in the last campaign. And I've not had one local school board member contact me that's in favor of this. I've not had one superintendent that I represent in Vandenberg or Warwick County contact me in support of this measure. And let me also say that contracts, I think they ought to be, these decisions ought to be made at the local level, not the state level. State government should butt their noses out. And, we're not seeing less government, we're just seeing more centralized government in Indianapolis. That's all that's happening. Indianapolis is taking more control. That's what will happen with charter schools. That's what's going to happen with vouchers. That's what's going to happen with collective bargaining bills. And school boards have to sign off on any contract that is made. And we should still give them the ability, I see no reason to change what we currently have. I think that both sides, as we've seen with our equity schools, through local contracts, we've been able to make changes at EVSC to help schools that are struggling. And the other thing I have to say is that, Indianapolis gets $11,000 per student. You know what Warwick County gets to educate a kid? $4,800. And we have 12 out of 15 exemplary schools in Warwick County. 12 out of 15 schools. And 5 of them are 4-star schools. That's as high as you can get, folks. And yet we're going to take money away from those schools. And we're also going to take their rights away to bargain, to help teachers, to help administrators reach consensus on issues that are important to both sides. And I think that's unfortunate.
Thank you. Next is Representative Bacon.
First, I want to thank Art for the compliment for all of us, and I want you really truly to know, and all of you, that many, many issues that come up, we have differences of opinions. But one thing I can say about our Southwestern Indiana group, we do work together, even though we have difference of opinions, and we will state them to each other. And sometimes we're like a family. We fight like cats and dogs. And, I may be yelling at one of them, and numerous times they're yelling at me. It's not an issue. They don't think twice about it either. But we will continue to do that, and I appreciate that compliment, because we're here working for you. And we will have different votes on different issues, and that's what's going to happen. We don't sit around and do exactly what we're told, and just because most of us are freshmen, and that's not the issue, and that's not what we're there for. But we look at each issue, and we each have different opinions, and we have different views on it, and we vote our conscience and vote what we feel from our constituents. And even though we'll have different votes, we'll continue to do that, and we're on record for that too. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. We're moving on to another issue. We're on this side again. At the very front, I see a hand. Please step up to the microphone and state your name, and you can get right into your issue.
My name is John Blair. I live in Evansville. I want to talk about what's Senate Bill 251, and I first want to start by thanking Senators Becker and Toms for voting against it when it went out of the Senate. It passed out of committee in the House on Friday, and by a 6-3 vote. It was a party line vote, pretty much. It now includes an eminent domain measure that allows a Texas company to come into Indiana and condemn private property for the use of building a pipeline. But this is maybe one of the most egregious bills that I've ever seen in my time following the Indiana legislature, because it basically, there's something about government. They can tax, and then they can say, I'm not going to raise taxes at all. But then if they allow a private monopoly to raise prices without any kind of controls, without any kind of oversight, even by the IURC, which is pretty much allowed in this bill, Senate Bill 251, it's a tax increase, but it's put on us by private industry, in this case the utilities, because it allows, if a utility decides that it wants to build a new nuclear plant, or if it decides that it wants to build a new coal plant, and I think that we have an understanding in Indiana what building new coal plants and what building nuclear plants is like, it will cause rates to go through the ceiling because they're so darned expensive to build. And it just seems to me like it's a way to increase taxes on the people without saying, I increase taxes. And whenever you put trackers on like this, it just is not the proper way of doing things. That's why we have an IURC. That's why we supposedly have oversight going on. Although, if you follow the scandal that's happened with IURC in the last 6 months, you can tell that it's not very much of an independent agency, but maybe you ought to fix that first and then forget the trackers. So,
okay, thank you. To summarize, you're opposed to Senate Bill 251, which allows eminent domain for building a gas pipeline. And trackers. Okay. Is there anyone that has a different take on the same issue? Anyone? I don't see any hands. So we're time for responses from legislators. So Representative Bacon first, then Representative Crouch.
Thank you. I'm not real familiar with Senate Bill 251 yet. As you said, it probably just came out of committee. We haven't talked about it. We haven't vetted it. We haven't seen or heard of it. We have talked a little bit about trackers, got a little bit of information on that, but I'm still not convinced of what that is and what it means. And I understand what you're saying about eminent domain and for pipelines, so I'm definitely going to look into that to find out and so forth. And I'm glad I got to talk first because I am going to have to leave. I have to be in Boonville at 11:30, so I won't be able to stay afterwards. So I appreciate everyone coming, and I'll make that and leave for that.
That defeats the purpose of sneaking out if you announce it.
I know. That's okay. Then I won't have to say I snuck out.
Okay. Thank you. Next is Representative Crouch, then Representative Regan.
Thank you, and thanks, John. I'm just a little familiar with it, not because we haven't heard the debate, but I too share your concern with the trackers part. I think there's a number of parts to that bill. So I don't know what was done in committee, if they addressed any of the issues or amended anything out, but I do share your concern on that. And so I appreciate the input. Now I'll look very carefully at that.
Okay, thank you. Next is Representative Regan, then Senator Becker.
Senate Bill 251. Oh dear, thanks. Senate Bill 251, I think, does have a lot of reasons that we need to look at it seriously. Certainly, the eminent domain. I'm very concerned about that. Trackers and just unbridled trackers. We're going to see. I'm really worried about the fact that we're seeing a trend where we're not going to have any oversight of trackers, I'm afraid, and that just cannot be. I think we should eliminate them. I agree with you. I will have a lot of problem with this, as well as I agree that it's going to continue to increase our bills, and my constituents have already talked about that.
Thank you. Next is Senator Becker, and then Senator Thomas.
Thank you. I appreciate your input, John. You know, there was also a separate bill on that Texas transmission, the eminent domain, the Texas company, and actually that bill, I can't remember what the bill number was at the time because it was not in 251. It was a separate bill that gives eminent domain to a company to come in and build pipelines, and it was defeated in the Senate. I don't understand why they would bring it back and try to send it back over to the Senate, but it doesn't surprise me. It happens all the time. I personally have a real problem with trackers because they're a way for utility companies to circumvent the rate hearing process with the IURC, and it allows them to automatically raise rates that otherwise would not have been allowed under the IURC, and I think trackers have just gotten out of hand. I understand the need in some cases, but I think that all those issues ought to go before the IURC.
Thank you. Next is Senator Thomas.
Thank you. Yeah, the eminent domain was a real sticking point too, because there was some discussion that in some cases some of these lines that are buried underground are not all that deep, and if they come across property, it could be an area that would prevent you in the future, a homeowner, from building a garage or a swimming pool or something like that. That was topics that was brought up because of the placement of these lines, and so eminent domain that was probably the major reason why that was defeated, because of the uncertainty of what would happen to a homeowner's property. The tracker thing, I don't know if everybody in here knows what that means. I'm hearing all of these acronyms and these cute little words my first go around on this, but the tracker is a mechanism that utilities have to place the cost of an improvement or an addition or mandates or expansions right onto the ratepayer without having to go through the process of applying for that rate increase. And I'm a little concerned about that. I do support some of the aspects of utility bills that we've heard, but I'm really concerned that it's so easy and so quickly that they can pass these increases right on down to the ratepayer without a process. And I'd kind of like to see where we would have something in place where utilities maybe would have to put some front money up on some of these costs. For example, say a 20% money of their own, where they have a vested interest in it before they would pass these increases on to the ratepayer. I think if we had something like that where they had some skin in the game, that they'd be a little more conscious too about cost overrun and things like that. So I hope maybe in the future we can maybe put a little bit more of a responsibility on the utilities too, to be a little more responsible on these these finances.
Okay, thank you. We are pretty much out of time, so we won't have any more issues today, and this is the last meeting of legislators of this General Assembly. We do want to thank you guys and thank the legislators. All of the legislators have been very good about being here at this, and quite responsive whether you're in their district or not, and that can be kind of unusual. That also, I've found that doesn't happen at the national level, but it does happen at the Indiana level, at least with our Southwest delegation. So what I ask you to do is, if you'd like to sign up and haven't, sheet is still in the back of the room to put an email for notification. Please take your trash for the containers, and if you have a washable mug, please set it up to the counter. And I think they still have the donation jar out, so you might want to participate in some of that. Again, we'd like to thank you for being here, and the next one will be for the next session sometime in November. So thank you. Okay.